Want to warmly welcome everyone from Geneva, Switzerland. This is Rev Donk, and this is the Week 3 discussion group for the GRISP Scholar course. Today is the 31st of October, 2017. Just to give you a heads up for the presenters, and I believe you should know who you are. You'll have 3 minutes to present your creator project. You'll be able to share it on screen. It doesn't have to be complete because we're not at the deadline yet, but we want you to explain how you developed your plan so far, what remains to be done, and for your fellow colleagues and participants, as well as our special guests. That's my next slide. You're encouraged to type questions and comments during the presentation. So typically we all stay silent and listen silently. In this context, one of the wonderful things we're able to do is we can hear each other's thoughts and have and discuss what is being said by the presenter while the presentation is happening. And of course, if you'd like to speak, we like to hear your voices, not just those of the course team. And so we're spending as much time of each discussion group handing it over to you, where you as participants get to show the work you've been doing, as well as share your expertise and experience, which you've already shown in the last, in the first 2 weeks are both considerable. So very pleased to introduce Rev Donk. So he is at the World Health Organization headquarters. You all recognize him, of course, because he welcomed you to the course along with other subject matter experts. And he's also shared some very specific case studies and examples related to his work and to the accurate information systems transformative investments. So Jan, welcome. The process for these sessions, we try to be lean, and so we will be hearing from you a bit later in the presentation, and we dispense with some of the formalities for the sake of time and efficiency. So discussion group ground rules, you've seen these before, and again, this discussion group is about your active participation. You know by now in week 3 how this works, and we ask that if you haven't done so already, and many of you have, you type the city and country that you are connecting from. All right, so I just have a couple, before sharing the agenda, I just have a couple of, Calvin, I believe you're number 7 on the list, so if we have time, we'll certainly come to you, to your presentation. Now, what you're seeing on screen has at least 2 problems, and I'd like to ask the participants by now, many of you have rapidly become masters at working in Scholar, so can anybody in the chat share with me what you see is wrong here? All right, I'll give you a few seconds to look at the screen and consider what could be wrong here. All right, structure. Yes, in fact, this person has not set up their structure. So that's actually, that's a third thing. I hadn't thought of that one, and you can't see it from this screen. Anybody else? Okay. All right, we're seeing lots of country names. So let me just, so on the left-hand side, you see the person has basically pasted their week 1 update. They haven't actually started working on the on their creator project. And on the right-hand side, so I'm only talking about what's happening in Scholar, not the substance of the project. And then on the right-hand side, the project has been submitted, even though it's clearly not ready for peer review. So at some point, if you remember, there are 2 buttons down here where you see Edit Latest Version and Return to Project. There's a Submit for Review button. Do not click on Submit for Review until you've actually submitted your draft. So I hope that is helpful. And yes, in fact, you can see that the structure hasn't been created. So just want to point those things out. Do not click on Submit. Do not submit your draft. You're able to unsubmit. So for Suleiman Yao, who the fix is very simple. Just click on Unsubmit, and then you'll be able to work on your project again. However, once the deadline passes on Friday, or actually then that is not going to work anymore, so make sure you get that fixed. Second, I was very pleased to see that participants have begun to share resources in the shares. So there's the bottleneck analysis presentation from UNICEF, and then something from David Brown on denominator issues. So, however, what we don't know is why your colleagues who posted this did so. And I really want to encourage you to do two things. One is to post resources that you find useful, but in the description, tell us what is interesting or relevant about them. It may seem obvious to you, but we're all swamped with too many documents, too many resources. So tell us what is important about this one, and we try to do it when we share a resource in the shares. I hope that's helpful. All right, that's just two quick technical issues I wanted to point out and bring to your attention. This is now the discussion group agenda for today. And we do have a big announcement to make, and I hope it will bring relief and reassurance to some of you, is that we have decided to grant an extension to the deadline originally announced for Friday, 3rd of November, until Sunday, 5th of November. So you now have until Sunday evening to submit your draft creator project, and we hope you will use that time wisely. We hope that you've been keeping up day by day and won't need this extra time, but should you need extra time, even though we realize it's the weekend, we hope this will be useful to you. So now, we do recommend that you work steadily, and so we publish an update each day with some guidance on what might be you might be able to do. So Calvin clarifies the shares are related to his creator project and could be useful to participants who chose the same transformative investment. That's great. So Calvin, for others, very good. Just very pleased to see you share such a resource. The only thing that could have made it closer to perfection is if you had just told us that, which transformative investment it's related to and how. All right, so now we have some course feedback, and again, very pleased that this time, I think it's from my side, being better at communicating where to actually give feedback. So 47 of you did, so this gives us something more meaningful than we received in previous weeks, which actually is also close to what we got in previous weeks with many fewer participants responding. But almost all of the respondents to the survey have started their activity plan. I would also ask, even if you feel like you're way behind in the course and you haven't started, you're catching up, do complete the questionnaire and tell us. We need feedback from all sides. Not only the top performers, the people who are at the front of the group. So relevance of the discussion group, I think, is pretty explicit here. This was for last week. The relevance and the usefulness of the community dialogue as well. Yes, and then we got some great feedback on learning from peers, what it's like to be interacting with country colleagues from all over the world. So very explicit, and thank you for sharing that this is the experience you are having of the course. Now, having a nice experience, a pleasant experience is one thing, but we're actually interested at the end of the day in your progress towards these learning objectives. So we're also pleased to see that through your hard work, through the your dedication and commitment, and the care you're showing for each other in the community, giving feedback and receiving feedback, this is what you're telling us about your progress. And yes, this is a very different way to learn. As you can see, for example, Rev Donk, who's kindly accepted to join today's discussion group, there is no lecture from him today. You've already seen and heard his presentation in the scholar community. So now we get to really use his time as best we can by just engaging him in discussion and dialogue and asking for to share his expertise and experience as inputs for the creator projects that you're working on. Difficulty has got a good spread. There were no sixes. Yes, so that's somewhat reassuring. We do want this to be challenging. I don't think we want it to be there should be a match between the level of the participants and what is expected in the course. Motivation is sky high, even though, so we're going to look into the 2s and 3s. Support, the same from the 2s and 3s. We'd like to hear from you. If you can get in touch with us, say how we can improve quality of the support. Overall, what you're telling us is about support and motivation is that you're finding what you need and getting the support that you need, and are highly motivated and self-directed in your learning as well. In terms of the amount of time, there's around a quarter of you in the first, last week that said you were spending more than what you expected. But most of you are finding that the amount of time is just right. Now, this may change with a creator project that you have to finish by the end of this week, but we also recognize that, hence the extension until Sunday. Now, one characteristic of the Scholar learning approach is that you do not have to stop work in order to go off to training. So that's difficult, that's challenging, because you still have to keep to stay on top of your job, and some of you have shared what those some of those challenges are. Again, very impressive display of commitment and engagement. I really want to commend the group and the individual participants who are going above and beyond in order to keep up with the course. And again, we've seen some people very remarkably fall behind due to field work or other emergencies and come back and catch up, which is why we issue the catch-up guides, for example, and are willing to take time out to connect on Skype or on WhatsApp and one-on-one help you get back up to speed if you fall behind. But you should not wait to get in touch with us. You should just get in touch with us as soon as you know that there is an issue. Now, there are also some constructive suggestions. So the first one, a group discussion with a team to share the idea. So we're kind of going to be doing that today. The point of having these participant presentations is so that we can discuss your project as a group. You'll get to do that in peer review in a very powerful way, as you'll see starting on Saturday for those of you who finish against the original deadline, and on Monday for the others. And then there is also a suggestion that we have a small group discussion based on a chosen transformative investment. A lovely idea. We've been discussing with WHO how to put that into practice and how to support that. And I think it's going to be dependent on participants who are willing to take the lead on to set up these small group discussions, make sure they happen, and make sure that their outputs are fed back to the group. So we'll be following up with the participants who initially suggested that, and invite you to express interest either in the chat or in the follow-up email if you're interested. Now, quick check-in on the schedule. So here we are, we're going into weeks 4 and 5, which are going to be dedicated to peer review. And to give you a sense of what you'll be doing in the next 2 weeks, the community will probably be a lot quieter, because this is the only part of the course that happens behind closed doors. So it's anonymous peer review. You will receive 3 notifications, and each notification will take you to someone's creator project, and then you will have to assign ratings for each of the criteria in the rubric, and most important, explain those ratings. So we'll be sharing, of course, the tutorials and instructions on exactly how to do that. But before we do that, I'll be showing the dates for that in the upcoming slides. So you are encouraged to think about and then describe what change is needed. So the point of doing the activity planning that you're working on is to think also about, to consider innovation, to consider new ways of doing new things that can actually help. So hence this notion of a transformative investment. And it may not necessarily be about picking sort of completely different activities, but it may be a different way of doing the same activity. And I believe this example is provided by Jill Mill on training, and there are many other examples. So rather than just repeat what you're used to doing, consider if there are any ideas that you've gotten from your colleagues, from the subject matter experts like Jan, who's with us in today's session, that you can actually put to use in the context of the plan, and then actually consider feasibility and and so on, to determine whether such an idea could actually be taken forward. And of course, you'll get your colleagues' feedback on that question through peer review as well. You've been practicing giving and receiving feedback in the first 2 weeks of the course. And again, this time you will be anonymous as a peer reviewer. You can choose to identify yourself, but your author will not see who you are. You won't know you won't see the author's name unless they've included it themselves in the Creator project, or if they've been one of the participant presenters, you may recognize their projects, but we ask that you respect these rules related to peer review. And now, we're now in week 3, so these are the different sort of tasks and deliverables. Weeks 4 and 5, we give you 2 whole weeks to review 3 projects. So we ask that you take that time to actually do a proper job of it. If the rubric calls for you to share your experience, your expertise, examples, case studies, documents, references, reports, whatever, all the things that could actually help for this. So here in week 5 we have more anonymous peer review, and then really it's at that point that you will go into week 6, where you'll be revising your project using the inputs that you've received from your reviewers. Right, so that's it for my update on where we are in the course. I'm just checking in the chat to see if there are any questions or comments. Yes, Alex says, because it was anonymous feedback, I figured it was you, but I was the one who suggested a small group discussions based on transformative investment, and I'm happy to take the lead and make it happen. Okay, wonderful. So, yeah. So there may be an issue. I'll check the dates for this. Yes, for this, but I'm hoping I may have put the wrong dates in a slide deck. I'm not sure, but from what I can see here, they are correct. So let's go now to the oral presentations by participants. Just as a reminder, I wanted to make sure if there is someone who is present who did not who did not present last week, who would like to go up, I'll show you the list. So we'll start with Khalid. Hopefully he won't have a technical issue that he had last time. Helen did say she's on a mobile. She's connecting from her mobile, so she won't be able to share her screen, but I'm happy to share her Creator project on her behalf. So here is how it works. You'll have 3 minutes to present your project, explain how you've developed your plan so far. So we're interested in the process. How did you work from that week 1 update and actually flesh out the activities or whatever you've been able to get done? All right. Yes, of course. Thank you. Participants who pointed out that the 6-week schedule was showing last year's dates, and apologies for that. So we'll fix it in the. I'll fix it in the PDF and share again, so you can download it again. So 3 minutes to present your project, explain what and how you've developed so far, and then what remains to be done in order for you to be ready to submit. If you have questions or dilemmas or things you found challenging and you'd like to ask your colleagues, you'd like to say, so I've looked at this activity, but I really want to think through how it relates to strategy. Do any of you have the experiences? All right. And let me just take Helen off this list. Yeah. Please do so during the oral presentation, and participants likewise. We will be looking to you to give feedback. We'll be going to Jan Rev Donk, who has joined us first. He'll get we'll ask him for his feedback to the participants, and then we'll go on to the rest of the course team and to the other participants, but also you know that you can use the comments and chat and raise hand features to get our attention. So let's start with Khalid then, and I see you are connected twice, so let me All right, let me first unmute you. And let's figure
Okay.
out, yes.
Good afternoon, Rida.
Yes, good
Hello,
afternoon. Yeah, hearing you loud and clear. So I'm going to,
yeah, thank you.
Great. So let me have a look. Yeah, so I'm going to make you the presenter, and then you'll be able to share your creator project. So make sure you have that on screen. You should now see. You should now see a prompt.
Is it showing?
Share your screen. Not yet.
Is it showing?
Yes, now it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is my actually screen. What I actually put in my creator.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
So I was able to actually go through the guidelines, through the description, justification, then prioritization, then activities, and then the M&E. I have actually drafted in all the parameters, all the thematic areas. So in Nigeria, that is from the description. From the description, due to the challenges we are having in Nigeria, Nigeria has actually declared as public health emergency in June 2017. And actually a lot of intervention has been going on, with actually more in the demand side than on the supply side. So based on the 2017 May EBMA, that is effective vaccine management activities, assessment that was done, and we found out that there are a lot of challenges in the supply chain, which shows that actually there are stagnations and actually decline in performance. From 2014, we have 68%, that is the national level, and then which is actually less than 80%, which is the recommended. Then by the recent one, we are in 63, which shows that actually we have been declining. So that is why actually I make this to be my transformative investment, to actually invest in vaccine supply. So the justification based on the preamble, vaccine supply chain actually need to focus and prioritize among the other challenges in Nigeria for adequate supply of potent vaccine to the last mile. Continuous improvement plan need to be developed to address the weakness identified in 2017 effective vaccine management. So these are just few justifications. The points are as follows: identify the areas of weakness which need to be strengthened at various levels to address future and present challenges of vaccine supply chain, to develop comprehensive plan, and then to have ownership and capacity development. So based on that, I prioritize the following. First of all, as we know that in Nigeria, actually we have issued a macro plan, and in routine immunization, if your macro plan is faulty, actually all your plan will going to be compromised. So we have our target population being deduced from 2016 national census, which actually shows that we are just getting the TP from the actually projected census, which is not realistic. So actually for forecasting vaccines and actually for decision making, it's not realistic. Then the second point is that maintain a functional cold chain and vaccine distribution system. So based on the EVMA, it has actually been highlighted that we have inaccurate CC inventory at the national level and inconsistent plan preventive maintenance, resulting in inadequate rehabilitation and expansion plan. So vaccine storage was actually identified as grossly inadequate, based on the fact that 50% of the required space, actually we don't have it at the national level. And if we need to actually expand our capacity by at least 66% to actually meet off with new vaccine introduction. So also there is too much actually dependent on power supply, which is actually for our CCEs, and then we need to actually revive that. Then the distribution of vaccine is basically by push, by pull from the lower level used to full vaccine. So actually we need to actually focus on that to transform it. Then the last point is just to establish a legal framework for immunization financing by creating and maintaining line items in national budget for vaccine and vaccination operations. As we all know that Nigeria actually is being supported by Gavi for vaccine supply, and we are about to graduate from Gavi by 2020. We are now in the transition phase. So present situation of inadequate budget, allocation of funds for immunization activities are greatly actually inadequate, confounded with declined political will and commitment. So there is imminent fear of gross shortage of funds for vaccine requirement in future. So new vaccine introduced actually were expensive like IPV and PCB. So if really there is not actually dependent, or we are actually dependent on only Gavi and we are about to transit the future vaccine, we are going to have a lot of issues. Then in the activity plan, this
Dr.
is
Hadid, I apologize, but you are technically out of time.
let me summarize my activity plan.
Yeah. So what we'll do, yeah, is extend to 5 minutes per presentation.
Okay. So in summary, my activity plan as follows. For the first strategy micro plan, first of all, we need to update micro plan. And then as you see, the digital activity just to advocate for using innovative technology like GIS to make our updates. Then to estimate vaccine requirement based on the TP.
Okay, I've just lost the audio from Dr. Khalid. Are you able? Yeah.
During the update, then there is need for actually. Then the second strategy, I develop it as follows: functional cold chain and vaccine distribution. Accurate CC in we have constant supply, then we are not dependent to this power supply, and then we can actually have a very good plan preventive maintenance. These are the stakeholders, national technical group, working group for immunization. Then we are actually need to ensure that delivery is through direct delivery, either using the vendors or maybe to actually develop a sustainable plan for development later in future. Then the last one, establish framework for legal immunization financing. First of all, we need to actually ensure advocacy to the policy makers, high-level advocacy actually for the requirement and local vaccine production if possible, to demonstrate cost effectiveness of vaccine immunization to the political leaders actually for their own will. Then we have fiscal space assessment, local resources mobilization. Actually one after we graduate from Gavi to get actually vaccine procurement to be actually continuous. Then there is need to align our budget into actually public financing management so as to ensure that our budget is carrying along with immunization activities. Then in the monitoring by evaluation, first of all, I would like to ensure that in any avenue, maybe during meeting or seminars or during workshop, I have to ensure that to buy in and harmonize the prioritized activities into our CYMP, that is from our partners. Then I use this as actually my MIE tool. Develop realistic and costed strategic plan using SMART approach, which comprises of the time frame, responsibility, budget, source of fund, and then outcome. This is actually how I plan my own, and then this is the table for the MIE and actually for tracking the performance. Then for evaluation, just in front of implementation through like EVMA that I already presented, then surveillance of variety of vaccine preventable diseases. This is how we actually evaluate the impact. So this is just in summary what I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Khalid. So, of course, that is way over time, but as you are our first presenter, I was willing to be indulgent. However, it seems that some of your esteemed colleagues are not quite as indulgent, so I'm going to try to stick closer to the time. Before we go to Rev Donk, one participant suggested that we summarize our presentations in order to meet the time. Another participant agreed, and a third asked for this to be time-bound, so to stick to the timer. But we realize this is a challenging exercise to summarize a lot of information in a short time. Dr. Khalid, so thank you very much for being the first.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving me the chance.
And a comment from Dr. Mohammed, very well done, Dr. Khalid. And Calvin does say, would have been interesting to follow from your creator window to see how you use the tool to present your work. However, it's overall very interesting, and I had no problem listening for more than the 3 minutes given. Praneet Fatal adds, nice presentation, Dr. Khalid. So these, let us now turn to Rev Donk, and he is going to share his critical feedback as well as insights and advice based on his experience, even if your transformative investments is not the one he spoke about in the course. Welcome, Jan. How are you doing this afternoon?
Very good, thank you.
And where are you connecting from?
From Geneva.
Okay, yeah. So you've just listened to our first participant presenter, working to finish his plan, as the other participants in the course are, to be submitted by the end of this week. So we'd love to hear first, the participants in the session all know you. They have watched your videos in which you introduce themselves and share some of the work that you're doing. So yeah, we'd love to hear a few words from you, and then specific feedback about the participant presentation, please.
Yeah, so thank you for inviting me to this session. I think it's really interesting to learn from you how you're doing this. I think it's a very nice method, and I'm looking forward to learn more about it. So just to say, for the first presentation that we saw, I also agree that it was very interesting, and I didn't mind it went over a couple of minutes. I think that Dr. Khalid did the right diagnosis, drawing on EVM, and he could also have used kind of the results of the latest kind of mix and NICS survey that was done in Nigeria, where the outcome was that coverage was indeed very low, which means that indeed this is a country that needs to work a lot on the fundamentals, you know, the building blocks of immunization. Of course, supply chain is one of them, and improved micro planning and session planning, session monitoring also fits into that. What I would say, and I think there's just a lot of material to look at, and I'm not sure if I do it justice, but it's probably kind of wise to kind of really think about the priorities in that plan. What is most important? What should come first? For example, you can look at the need for kind of more detailed micro planning, but I think you also identify correctly that one of the major problems is the lack of investment and actually funding that flows through the system. So health workers not being paid for half a year in a row and everything. So as long as these problems are not solved, then maybe micro planning won't also work. So maybe just like thinking about like what needs to come first, what is really kind of the basic requirement before improvements can be done. And then also to say that for micro planning and session monitoring, so I think if you identify that as one of your main activities, so how are you going to monitor that? And maybe the EVM won't be enough, so maybe you'll have to think about a system or a way to really monitor whether sessions take place, vaccines get to where they are, and sessions are being executed. One very small detail I wanted to point out is that you can try to use the updated population estimates for vaccine distribution, and that might improve the situation a bit. But with all the uncertainty in Nigeria about the correct denominator, as well about the uncertainty around the coverage, you might also want to use really kind of consumption data, like trying to find out how many vaccines, how much vaccines is really are really used, to make sure that you ensure high availability, but also don't overstock necessarily the centers, because like I think this is also something that we suspect of happening. I'll leave it at that just to save time, but just to say I enjoyed that.
Great, thank you, Jan. Okay, I see many other comments in the chat window. So Nevoani Cornelius Ali, who says, I have learned a lot, Dr. Khalid. Alex Ajagba, our next presenter, about the financing point. This is a bit too theoretical. Let's discuss the concrete aspects of this strategy. And then Mukesh Prajapati, excellent. Dr. Khalid, nice presentation. Just one query about referencing that I'm struggling with too. How are you listing your references? So Khalid will give you an opportunity to answer that, or if you want to type an answer into the chat. Anvar Nazardinov, nice presentation, Dr. Khalid. Thank you for sharing with us your work. Omolara Adeyemi, welcome, Dr. Khalid. You nailed it, as discussed. Pranit Fatale says you need to be more specific and practical about financing. Pankaja Raghav says, Dr. Khalid, it is perfect project. And Bashir Ahmed, yes. Okay, so Paul is in there twice. Thanks for spotting that. That's it so far. So great. Thank you. To the presenter and to Jan. I've asked Jomil and Alex if they have any additional comments from the WHO side. So let's now go to our next presenter. So, and I'd like to ask the organizers to just keep an eye on the organizer channel, if you will. So Alex, I'm now making you the presenter. And yes, I've set the timer for 5 minutes, and really want to. try to find the right balance to do justice, keeping the presentation short so we can have several in a session, and at the same time do justice to the depth and substance of the work that's involved. So let me see. So Alex, I'm unmuting you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you? Yeah. There seems to be a lot of background noise where you are, but we can see your screen.
Okay. So I'll try to speak now. Hi everyone. I'm going to present very briefly my work on Guinea. So I don't live in Guinea and I'm not from Guinea, so I will be looking forward to anyone who has more information and evidence on that country. So the reason why I give here some background on the country situation. I'm not going to go through it, but I just want you to note here that Guinea has been in the West African region one of the biggest achievers in terms of the primary healthcare in the 80s. And there are several countries in this region that's where they had some study tools in Guinea to learn how they were working on that and how the system was so strong. Unfortunately, due to different factors, including political instability and economic crisis.
So, Alex, sorry to interrupt you, but there are participants reporting that the sound is very low. They cannot hear you very well. And if you could make the creator screen, if there's a way for you to make that window bigger, because I think people are struggling to see what you're showing on your screen. Sorry for the interruption.
Now, is it better? Is it better now?
Yes, please continue, Doctor.
No. Hello? Is it better now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So I was saying that Guinea, just in terms of country context, Guinea has been in the country where the implementation of primary healthcare has been really good in the past, and there were many countries in the region that traveled to Guinea to learn about their experiences. Unfortunately, there are many factors that affected the system, and one of the consequences is the loss. The very weak health system, routine immunization system now, and that has had many bad consequences. For example, the Ebola virus, that was a direct consequence of the weak surveillance system in the country, and also a very low immunization coverage rate. The last coverage rate was about 26% in the country. So I put some slides here to show the impact of the Ebola outbreak, and then also some equity information here to show that. And I'm moving to justification. So why did I choose this transformative investment? The reason is that when you look at this situation the first time, you find out that there are many changes that are needed, and I had to pick one of them. The reason why I picked this one is that the country has, due to all those outbreaks in polio, Ebola, everything, they are now very much aware of the need to reconstruct the routine immunization system. So I suppose that the advocacy is quite high, the awareness is quite high, and also the financial resources in the country are available because there are many partners and there's Gavi, everything. So the government is very committed to that. So I decided that it would be important to focus on the planning cycle, because there are a number of strategy documents right now there. You have the CMYP, but you also have the SEF document that have been that have been developed by Gavi to support the country. Many main documents that were found to be they need to be integrated in only one plan. And the idea is to update the CMYP so that all the aspects and recommendations that came out from the very important meeting that happened in October this year, that was called the High Level Immunization Forum, that were give an opportunity to more than 200 stakeholders from every sector in the country to give their input and make some recommendation on how to strengthen again the routine immunization system. So, so the idea is to have this unique plan that would take into account all those recommendations and all the action needed next. And then in terms of prioritization, I picked 3 of them. All of them were important, but I picked the one that's related to develop and update the current CMYP that was developed last year. I suppose that next year will be 2 years, so it can be updated. And the second one is to focus on to develop and update operational plan, annual plan of action, and then to track the service delivery, expenditure, and shortfalls at all levels. In terms of activities, it's important to what is missing right now in the country is that despite the CMYP that was developed, when you go to at the regional level and the district level, people are not at all aware of those documents, those strategic documents. So there is a need to match at some point the work that is being done at the district level with the regional level and the central level. So one of the recommendations from the High Level Forum was to create a regional coordination forum for immunization, where they will have the equivalent of a regional version of the CMYP that will be developed and that can take into account the centralized structure of the country. So I'm moving to
you are over time, Doctor, okay. So I'm going to have to ask you to quickly summarize and recap the activities in the M&E.
Well, the M&E part is a part that I haven't developed that much, so I think I could stop here.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, we're going to be tightening up the time requirement, but now I want to again turn to Rev Donk for his feedback, insights, shared expertise, and experience, please.
Yes. So thank you, Dr. Alex. Very nice presentation. I think you identify Guinea as one of these other countries with a lot of kind of really big challenges. And I think I agree with you that kind of a good strategic multi-year plan is a very good way to start. And as we know, kind of the problem with the CMYPs is that they're often done as a mechanical exercise and they kind of produce documents that sit on shelves, but actually not enough attention is being paid to the implementation of those plans and the monitoring of those plans. So I think your proposal to really kind of think about tracking the investments and the budgeting that goes towards implementing those plans is a very good first step. I think for the rest of your presentation, we didn't see very many of the concrete activities that will then happen, but I think it provides at least the framework, that plan. What I didn't hear or didn't know is whether Guinea has a good updated maybe EPI review or another kind of assessment that shows you like where in the system the weakest points are. Is it supply chain? Is it demand? Is it yeah, the people, the governance, the processes? So maybe that would be something good to highlight where you think kind of the implementation of that plan will make the biggest changes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jan. So there are many comments from the participants. Yeah, so there's a general comment on process from Samuel Roches. Would it be possible to spend more time on the activities in M&E? I feel we covered the selection, justification, prioritization well during previous weeks, but I'd love to have more details about the subsequent steps. So we'll actually be focusing on that as we move into peer review, and we'll be sharing the process. We'll be doing some live peer review together as a group next week. So we really do want to get from those first 2 weeks how you've sort of put that into your creator project. So there is also Dr. Alex praise from your colleagues. Nice work and huge challenges. Nice work, Alex. Good presentation. Very well prepared. Thanks, Alex, for the great job. I noticed some few things. Each strategy should be developed in 1 paragraph. Separating the titles makes it 2. Would like to know if country context is compulsory in the creator project, as I don't see it in the rubric proposed in the review. So exactly the exact format, there is some discretion for you as an author to decide what is the best way to present your project. With respect to the country context, keep in mind that your reviewer probably will not be familiar with your country context. So it's in your interest to share enough that they will be able to better evaluate and give you better feedback using the rubric. Tapas Sadasivaner, very well prepared presentation. And again, I read these chat comments even though you can all see them, because you can see them, but anyone watching the recording will not be able to. So Jani agrees with Jan about the CMYP. They are most time not followed or fully implemented as written. Pankaja Ragav, it was a nice presentation. What challenges are you going to expect and how will you be dealing with them? Alain Blaise Tatsinku is pleased that the plan is integrated in the CMYP. Calvin Tonga, was nice seeing the work in creator. Congrats for the work done. Sahid Mohamud Abdi, congrats Alex for good presentation. Dr. Alexander Karik from WHO says budgeting, yes, however, securing funding and resource mobilization should be worked out. Jani says congratulations for the first step. Olu Watosin Kuti, good work Alex, love the use of images, maps and graphs. Adamu Ibrahim, well done for the efforts. Pascal Bagbulo, good work done Alex. And Akachi Mboku, a very detailed presentation, Alex. Okay, that's a wonderful feedback. Love to see participants supporting each other, giving each other support, as well as critical comments to help each other improve. Let's now go to Paul A. Senge, who is our next presenter. So, Paul, are you able to?
Yes, I'm around. Thanks.
Great. All right. I'm now going to.
Yes, I'm on. Yes, do you hear me?
Yeah, yes, loud and clear. They got a little static, but I'm now making you the presenter. You now have to click a button.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so
do you hear me now? Thank you.
Yes, I hear you.
Hello?
Mostly. Yes, I can hear you. However, you have to accept the prompt to share your screen, or the alternative is that I can share.
Before in one of those areas, you know that the country is characterized by high infant and child mortality and base prevention. So the country has priority on increasing immunization coverage. Working with the global vaccine action plan.
Okay, I've completely lost Paul. It is rare these days that we have a poor audio quality on these calls. So I've shared his presentation. But it looks like the audio has completely dropped out. So we're going to move on. And apologies to Paul for the quality of the internet connection, which of course depends on many different things, and he's now offline. Okay, let's go to Pragath Ponam. And yes, Pragath.
Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you.
Let me now make you the presenter. All right, you should now have the prompt. Yes, okay. And just let me know when you're ready and I will start the timer.
Okay. So I think everyone can view my screen. The
Yes.
transformative investment I have chosen is building capacity of the vaccinators and district managers. I have come to this conclusion, based on a personal opinion and in relation to my country. Imagine that we are in a war and there are two kinds of people, one who will lead and the other one who will implement. So as the GRISP has nicely pointed out that building national team is one of the core transformative investment, and I feel the other one to implement all those transformative investment is related to the capacity of the vaccinators and the district managers. So as you can see, I'm showing data analysis. The data was taken from house-to-house survey, checking randomly below 2-year-old children. The number of children checked were 2,17,073 children during the period from March 2016 to January 2017. And we can see that 79% of the monitored children are fully immunized and 18% are partially immunized, whereas 3% are unimmunized. And the analysis for the partially immunized children of 18% and 3%, we can see that 35% have missed their vaccination because of adverse event following immunization apprehension, and 29% because of awareness and information gap. Now, the number of children monitored is not low, but at the same time, this monitoring was done randomly. From this, I think that the awareness and information gap is because of a lack of rapport between the public or communities and the vaccinator or the district managers, because vaccinators are the closest people who are closest to the community. So if they can improve awareness of the public will act.
I've just lost Burgath.
And it will improve. Hello?
Yes, continue. There was a gap of about 10 seconds during which we could not hear you at all, but please continue.
Okay, the second one is AEF apprehension. Vaccinators in India give 4 key messages. We call them 4 key messages after vaccination. The first message is what vaccine is given and what disease it prevents. The second message is what are the common side effects of the vaccine. So if the public are made aware of the common side effects of vaccine, like fever after a pentavalent injection, people will not be so apprehensive. And there are some other side effects which are common to most of the vaccines. So this awareness generation might improve the routine immunization coverage. So basically what I'm trying to say is the demand generation of the vaccines relies on the knowledge and the capacity of the vaccinators also. And that is the reason why I have chosen the transformative investment to build the capacity. And the first presenter was mentioning about preparing microplan and cold chain management. So that holds very good for his country. For India to prepare microplan, the vaccinators are to be well trained, and cold chain management also supervisors are to be well trained. So my summary for justification is other than building national team leaders, to implement the immunization program, the vaccinators are the main play the main role. Now I will go to the prioritization. Now these are the 9 strategies which are for the transformative investment which I have chosen. Among these I have chosen 3 strategies because most of the 9 are interrelated, and these 3 strategies plays a major role. The first one is training of the vaccinators along with refresher trainings. There were 2 performance needs assessment done by Government of India in collaboration with WHO, UNICEF and other partners. One was in 2005 and the other one was in 2009. So this is the latest one. I have given the link also if anyone wants to go through all that. So in comparison with both of them, the immunization coverage is directly related to the the performance of the vaccinators and the capacity of the vaccinators to improve the coverage. After 4 years, what the performance needs assessment has summarized is there was increase in some indicators, but there was no or marginal increase in some indicators. For example, there was only marginal improvement in interpersonal communication skills, and only 40% of the vaccinators welcomes beneficiaries. Only 17.9% of the vaccinators which were assessed, they explains what vaccines will be given and when they are given. So if the public doesn't know what vaccines they are getting and what disease they prevent, they won't come for the next time. And only 12.9% of the vaccinators screen for contraindications, which might lead to AEFI and in turn will lead to hampering the immunization coverage. So the second strategy is train supervisors in supervisory skills. So when a supervisor goes for field verification or support.
Dr. Bergat, you are technically out of time. Please summarize the remaining strategies and we'll and conclude.
The third strategy is use remote and individual learning. I could not find much data on this, but I'll complete the activity in time. And activity planning, I have for these three strategies, I have made the table, but I think I will have to research more and get inputs from our colleagues in the group. So that's all from my presentation.
Great, thank you, Dr. Pergath. Over to Jan Grevendonk for feedback and advice with respect to your presentation.
Yes, I have very little to add. I think it's a fantastic presentation. Really good use of data, and of course you also show the kinds of data that are available in India that are not always available in other places, but it really flows very nicely. You go from the identification of what the priority would be in India, which is indeed kind of maybe that demand and the apprehension, etc., to kind of the prioritized actions that you would propose. So I think it flows really well.
Thank you, Jan. A comment from Alexandra Karik. Go ahead, Alexandra.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. This was an excellent presentation. I would like to add on your lack of vaccinations being done due to IF5 apprehension and awareness and information gap. I think it would be also good to differentiate when you have within this group of awareness and information gap, what is this information gap due to? Is that the fact that people do know that the vaccinations exist but choose not to do them? That in fact represents vaccine hesitancy, and it is a very serious issue that needs to be addressed. So it would be good to differentiate what belongs of this information gap, whether that is just a lack of information or a lack of choosing to do the vaccination in spite of having the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. So many comments in the chat from Radija Filipov. Excellent presentation. Thank you, Pergath. A question that maybe, Pergath, you might be able to answer in the chat window from Sahid Mohammed. Missed children, is it SIA campaign or routine immunization? If it is routine, which antigen is missed by the children? Dr. Khalid Abubakar Iser, human resource motivation is very important. Mohammed Miraz Salim says, good, Pergath. Iyad Omar Mustafa Abdel Kadir, for activity planning, we need to have a demonstration of how an activity works and best be the solution for selected strategy with 3 exclamation marks. Yes, indeed, that is in line with the rubrics requirements. Raghavendra Patel Chitimila, excellent Pergath. Pankaja Raghav, you've planned it very well. Samuel says, great start, Pergath, congrats. And Voani Cornelius, detailed presentation and good work. Sarjo Gesama says, good presentation. What plans do you have to bring the communities on board? And then Pergath clarifies it is RI, it is routine immunization. Message from Pascal Bagbulo, good analysis done to justify the transformative investment. Well done. Thanks, Pergath, especially for the figures and links in the text. However, as for Sahid, would like to know about the missed children survey. Was it RI or SIA? Alain Blaise Tatsinku, thanks, Pergath, good job, I will. Olu Watosin Kuti, great work, Pragath. Love the use of evidence from the house-to-house survey to inform prioritization. And Alain's last comment, will to see the rest of the activity sounds good already. All right, there is more feedback from Jill Mill on this presentation. Jill Mill, and then that's the perfect segue, because we now have to, after your comment, Jill Mill, I'll ask you to close the session for us.
Okay, thanks, Reda. Thank you, Dr. Pragath, for this presentation. You've sort of highlighted the points really well, and I will encourage you and the others who sort of work in this area of capacity building to actually think about why the trainings in the past have not really worked. You showed in your justification that there hasn't been much change in the way that the parents, the health workers interact with the parents. So I think there needs to be some more thinking on, you know, what can be new approaches to training, what has not worked in the trainings that have been done in the past, and how it can be done differently. Same for supportive supervision and supervisory skills trainings. So I think you're going in the right direction, but training is my area of work, so I would be very interested to see some projects that get into, you know, deeper thinking on this area, and seeing, you know, if the trainings done in the past, what was good and what wasn't, what didn't work, and how it can be done differently. And thank you all for the presentations. I know that we always fall short of time, but it gives you a flavor, a sense of how your projects are progressing. And as we almost in the middle of this course, we're really excited, and we're really happy to see all the enthusiasm that you're showing to this course. And as promised, we are trying to get guest speakers every Tuesday. But if there are any particular, you know, speakers that you would like to hear, certain areas that you don't know much about, please do write to us, and I will try to see if we can get an expert to talk during these Tuesday sessions or the video. Thanks again. Reda?
Great. Thank you, Jamil. Yeah, and thank you to all of the participants, the presenters, as well as all of you who have been so active and so good about giving feedback to your colleagues. I hope that these sessions will encourage those of you who may not feel quite ready to present, and I hope you'll see that it is possible, it can be done, and that we'll have more volunteer presenters, and we'll strive to give everyone a chance. So perhaps those who have presented already, if there is someone who has not presented yet, you could cede your place. We'll see how that works. Again, I concur with Jill Mill's observation about the enthusiasm and dedication that you have been displaying in the course. We're now closing the mandatory weekly discussion group for this week. However, if you'd like to see what is coming next, how you are actually going to perform peer review, there will be, of course, on Saturday morning a set of video tutorials posted. But if you'd like to stay, and if you're able to stay online, please do. I'm going to walk you through that process and show you what peer review, how peer review works in practice. So if there are any burning questions about just about the technical issues with Scholar, with Creator, then definitely type them in the chat. I'll pause so we can see how we can find the solution, or ensure that there is follow-up to fix whatever problems you are having. I do say almost all of you have been so good at being self-directed learners and really making viewing reading the instructions, viewing the video tutorials, and figuring things out on your own. That's been very impressive to see as well. So here we are in Scholar in the community. So let me start from the beginning. Yes. So of course you should know this login screen. Now things will look slightly different because in this case I am logging in as administrator. So my activity stream, as you know, shows me everything that's going on across all of the communities that I'm a part of. But of course, the community I'm interested in is the GRISP community. So let me go to that one. And here we are. So you can see by default, there's so much going on, so many comments. And what you want to do as a reminder, and I'll show you this every week, is you go to updates, and this is actually something you can bookmark. Then filter updates and select the admins item here. Okay, here. Okay, and I see a question from Omolara Adeyemi. My worry is on references. What if I cannot get any? So the reference to evidence is will strengthen the case you make, obviously, for your selection and prioritization and the description of the activities and even the monitoring and evaluation. It is only one consideration. If you look in the rubric, there is a question to encourage you and to encourage your reviewers to consider what level of evidence you are presenting. But it may also be legitimate to say, based on your experience, based on your observations, basically identifying if you are asserting that something is important or relevant in your country context. How do you know? If you have strong evidence to support it, that's the best option. But if you have your years of experience and your personal observations, then you should say that, and that will at least clarify where you're coming from, how you know what you know. So is reference referring to source of information also? So I'm not sure what Omolara means. What we have in the rubric is really intended to get you to make sure that when you assert that something is true, you are clear about how you know what you know. So question from Wajid, how we will create project on Scholar, or we will post as Word documents. So Wajid, I believe, let me find you the, yeah, you need this update. And this update, again, and if there are any fellow participants who would like to help Wajid get started in Creator, so no, you're not going to post a Word document, you are going to develop your project. You saw what projects look like in Creator, that is what you need to do, and that is explained by watching the video tutorials. Now, if you're unable to stream these videos, we also have them available in the course Dropbox folder that you'll find in the materials. So here we are. Let me pick out a project, one of the ones that was presented today. Let's go to Pergaths, and let me show you, so let me explain what will happen on Saturday. So even though we have extended the deadline until Sunday, so if you need more time, you have until Sunday evening to complete your Creator project. Scholar, however, will consider that as of Friday evening, as soon as it rolls into Saturday Geneva time, that you are late. So you'll receive a late notification. You can ignore that notification if you are in fact, because we have given you that extension. But Scholar, the automated notification, will still consider that, yes, the deadline is what it was originally set to be. So that, and you can safely ignore that. But what you will see is, as soon as you submit your project, or within a few minutes, you will see in the notifications, you will see a work review request. So let me find one. No, not a revision request. Yeah, no, not up here. Yeah, you will see a feedback request. So here, this is for another course, but you'll receive a message that says feedback request. The title of the work, and just, then you will have a button to view work. So you will actually have 3 feedback requests, and then you will need to click on each one, and the level of complexity that you're going to be dealing with, each one will take you in Creator. And in Creator, you're going to be looking for the first time at the Works panel. So here, you can see I have many works in my case because I'm the administrator for many courses. You will have, as soon as peer review starts, so just to be clear, I'm talking about what's going to happen next week. Once you're done submitting your draft, I see you all are proceeding with preparing your drafts, and all you need to do is submit for review. Click that button at the bottom left in Creator. But here I'm talking about what you're going to be doing next week, giving you a head start. And of course, there will be video tutorials to provide the refreshers if you need them. A question from Alain. Please clarify the structure of tables in our project and the overall structure. Can we just choose any design? So if you think that there are ways to do a better structure, then you're free to do that. Now, it will depend on your reviewers. If your reviewers will expect to see what what is in the rubric, will expect to see what you've been instructed. So some reviewers might be fairly harsh and say, you've cooked up your own structure, why have you done that, and will rate you downwards and explain it in their reviews. Others may find it's brilliant, and so that's really a chance you take. So being consistent with the instructions is the most reliable option from that perspective. So once peer review starts, so as early as Saturday, but Monday morning for everyone, you will have notifications. Once you accept them, you'll end up with 4 works in here. So think of them as 4 separate Word documents, and you switch from one to the other by clicking on it. So if I wanted to go to protocol review for country A in brackets, I would click on that. Okay. So what you'll have to do, you'll have 1 work which is your own, which you should be able to recognize in that list, and 3 works which are the ones you've been assigned to peer review. So if I were to peer review Pergath's work, how would I go about it? So everything that you're going to be doing in week 5, so next week, after you have submitted your work, and remember that you will not receive your peer review requests until your work has been submitted. So everything you'll be doing in peer review will be happening in the feedback tab here. And here you have, again, a lot of options. You have reviews, annotations, recommendation, checker, and then under each one you have additional sort of sub-menus. At least for reviews, you have review, review work, and results. So what is going on in this panel? So here you have the review criteria. You have the full rubric with an explanatory text for what should be in each one, right? You also have the ratings. So, for example, for format and presentation, the 4 means that the format and presentation are excellent. The 0 is that there's comprehensive editing required. Basically, you have to redo the format and presentation. And then you have 3 additional ratings in between. So how do you do a peer review? You go to review work, and now you can see that you have that same, let me find so they may not be in the same order. You have general format and presentation, and you have to do 2 things. The first thing you do is actually just decide on the rating. But in order to do that, you're going to have to go and read what the author has written and carefully consider how good a job have they done on format and presentation. To get more specific, is the narrative clear, well organized, and concise? Is there only relevant specific information clearly related to the assignment included? So these are the questions you were given to create your activity plan. But now you're turning the lens on somebody else's work, but you're asking the same questions that you had to answer. So you would look at this, you would not know it was Pergath, even though now everyone's going to know his work and will recognize it. But is it clear, well organized, and concise? Is there only relevant, specific information? So you have to think through, and remember, it's not about making a judgment. In a public forum such as today's discussion group, praise is nice, letting your colleague know that you appreciate their work. But that's not the point of peer review. The point of peer review is to give specific advice on how the author can improve their work. So that is more than good job or nice work or needs improvement. That is actually, if you say good work, what is good about it? What can they do to make it even better? If you say it needs improvement, what kinds of improvements are needed to, for example, to the general format and presentation, and why? So say I wanted to give a 4. The important part is not the rating. You're not giving a grade. You're giving your sense of the level of effort and further progress that may need to be done. If you gave Pergath, or the author, a 0, the format and presentation requires comprehensive editing. What we would expect from you as a reviewer, what we will demand of you as a reviewer, is that you tell the author how to take it from a 0 to a 4. What does the author need to do in order to if it requires comprehensive editing? Saying so is one thing, but what is the specific advice that you can give that will help them revise and improve? And of course, general format and presentation is not substantive. It's more about the appearance and the organization, how easy to read is it, and so on. But if you look at the justification of the transformative investment, again, let's go look at so here's the justification. So you have to take the time to read it. This is why we give you 2 full weeks to read 3 projects, which are just a few pages long. And we do this because we really think that this is where you can do sort of on a larger scale with more sort of in more substantive ways what you actually did in the first 2 weeks of the course, which is produce something about your country context and then give feedback and share your advice and expertise and experience with others. So you'll have to do that for each of the criteria, assign a rating, and don't forget to assign a rating or else you won't be able to submit, and then explain the rating. And as you can see, the box is quite big, it's quite large. You need to provide a substantive comment or explanation in this box, or else you won't be able to submit your project, your review, sorry. Now, I have said you need to assign a rating for each criterion, and then you need to explain it. But then you are also required to use what are called annotations. So just to recap, we've been looking at the feedback tab. So if it's closed here, you can open it by clicking on the little triangle, then clicking on reviews. And then here you have the rubric, you have review work, which is where you have the ratings and the explanations, but then you also have annotations. And annotations are required, so you need to include annotations. These are like word track changes with a plus. So for example, here, there is no source, so let me create an annotation here, and I can make a comment or suggest a change. So let me zoom in on that. If I make a comment, that's really just like comments, adding a comment in Word. But if I suggest a change, I have some additional options here. So if I think it's excellent, but I want to know why, if I want to, if I would like the author to add description or explain a statement or add evidence, so I will say add evidence, and add a question about the source. Now again, you're not producing a paper intended for publication in the scientific journal. So this is not, there is a reference to evidence in the rubric. This is only an example. I don't want reviewers to start asking for extensive levels of evidence from the authors. This is just an example. Let me give, in fact, another one. If I wanted to create another annotation here, okay, so Yeah, if I thought, good point. Could we know more about, yeah, so if I wanted to know more context, that could be an annotation. Whatever you need to know, and again, keeping in mind that yes, the scope of the project is limited to what is in the rubric. So you do not ask for the moon in the comments or the annotations. You ask for things that will help strengthen the project. And again, you should always explain why you are requesting this or that as you make comments or suggest a change. So that is how annotations work. So you've seen three things, or actually four. First of all, the part you'll only see once the notifications are actually released, and once you have actually submitted your project for peer review, only then will you receive notifications to peer review the works of 3 others in the course. Once you accept these notifications, again, let me show you some feedback requests. Once you accept these notifications, then you will end up with 4 works in this yellow Works tab, and you'll have to learn to navigate between the 4. The first one is your own, so you know what it was called, and if you click on the little triangle here, you can see the author's name. And then you'll have 3 other works, which will be the ones that you are asked to peer review. All right? Then, under feedback, this is where the action will happen in week 5. So first of all, the rubric is always available to you. Of course, it's also available as a PDF document, and I expect that most of you have it for reference or have it printed in some cases. Some people may find that useful. You actually have a print button here. Here you have all of the ratings, all of the guidance under rubric. Under review work, this is where you actually perform peer review. So peer review consists of going through each criterion and then assigning a rating. Once you've read and thought about it and considered really what it is you're going to be telling the author, what you're going to be sharing with them, and then the important part is explaining that rating. And then once you've done that, you can add annotations. And so you select the text here and then click on Create Annotation. Now, to give you a sense of what that looks like when that is, yes, let me show you. Let me actually go to the, and I see there are additional questions. I just want to finish with this and then I'll come to the questions. Let me show you a plan from last year's GRISP course to show you what that actually looks like. So, all right, so in my case, of course, you can see the names, but yes. So what will this look like at the end? At the end, okay, this is not a good example. Yeah, okay. So at the end of week 5, so we're really talking about what is happening next week. So today's tutorial, I know we're only Tuesday, but I'm already telling you what's going to be happening next week. So if this confuses you because you're focused on your creator project and just getting it done and submitting, just set aside on the shelf the explanations I'm giving to you now. You'll see once you've actually submitted your project, then this will become fully relevant. So when you receive at the end of week 5, you will receive the peer reviews from your colleagues, and you will have the average ratings. So as you can see, this person got 4s on general format and presentation, justification, a 3 on prioritization, activity planning, and a 3.5 for M&E. So that's the sort of average ratings. But then the really interesting part is in the actual feedback. So what did the reviewer say to this author about their work? So they got 4s On general format and presentation and justification, the justification is excellent, it's country specific, having been affected by civil strife. But in some cases, and this is where it gets interesting, some reviewers may not agree with, so for example, on monitoring and the evaluation, one reviewer says it's not explained how the indicators fit into the country's annual work plan. I suggest that you only do some data quality audits, and let's see what the other reviewer says. And you will see, you won't see the reviewers' names, you'll see reviewer 1, reviewer 2, reviewer 3. So the other reviewer actually gave that the author of 4, as per plan, strategy, and activity plan, M&E is excellent. So if you're the author, and one person says you've done an excellent job, and the other points out something that you can improve, it will be your responsibility to actually make that judgment call. Which reviewer do I take into account? Which one calls for action? And in some cases, so I don't have an example handy here, but in some cases, you will find that reviewers contradict each other. One person will say your format and presentation is a mess, this is how you need to do it, this is what you should improve. And the other person will say you've done an excellent job on format and presentation. And again, that calls for you to think and consider both inputs and make decisions, because ultimately it is your plan. You have ownership of it, and you will decide what to do with it and where to take it. However, the requirement for the course is that we need to see substantive changes and improvements between the draft version and the version that you will finalize in week 6 after you have received the feedback in week 5. So this is skipping ahead. I know most of you are at the stage where you are figuring out how are you going to get this done by the deadline. Even with the extension, it may be challenging for some of you. We're well aware of that. So, but I do want to give you a sense of what that peer review process looks like. And I do know that there is a group within the cohort that is about a week ahead in the class. I want to make sure that they can stay just, and continue to progress in the course. So let me see some questions, great questions in the chat. So question from Mimi Lamumainak, could you explain a bit what you meant by integration in the activity planning table? So that's really just, is the activity embedded into existing activities, or can it be, or is it going to be something separate or that requires effort in order to sort of be moved into the ongoing existing activities? A question from Radevaj Filipov, when I restart my project, a creator appears edit latest version. Is this okay? Yes, it is okay. Are each part of the structure limited to 1 page? No, so let me show you, let me see if we can go back to Gosh, all right, actually I can probably edit this version. So yeah, so the way it works is that you elements of structure, and this I explain in the video tutorials. The point is you can focus when you're working on prioritization, just focus on that. But this, what you have in an element of structure, can be as long as you need it to be. Again, consider your reviewers need to actually have something they can usefully review. So if it's too long, that will be the problem. If you want to see what your project looks like, yes, you have some options here. You have the little eye, which gives you a preview. So let me show you what that does. Okay, so here when you switch to preview mode, you click on the little eye, you can see all of the sections, all of the elements of structure together. All right. If you want to go back to be able to edit individual elements of structure, you click on the little yellow pencil. Your other option, if you want to see what this looks like, is a nicely formatted page or set of pages. You click on the little printer, and here you can actually view in browser, and that will give you a nicely formatted work. And you may see some issues that you want to address, but your other option is to actually download a PDF. So those are some of the ways in which you can sort of gain perspective on your work as you're working here. So I hope that is helpful. So let me see. Okay, and I see Alain had already answered about editing the latest version. Are there any other questions at this point? I've actually given you what you will be doing next week. So just to clarify, and so no one gets confused, actually I'm not sure, you should be seeing the Submit for Review button at the bottom left of your Creator project. Now, in the same way that some of you posted your community updates on your personal profile page, in Creator there's a kind of analog to that. And that consists of creating your own Creator project that is not connected to the course. So if you did not follow the instruction to start new work using the notification you received, there's the risk that you work on a beautiful Creator project that is actually not connected to the course. And so how do you know if your Creator project is connected to the course? You know because, let me see where, versions, creators, yeah. So under About This Work, Publish, and here we're looking at work from GRISP Scholar last year, so it now says October 2017. But by going to About This Work, Publish, you will see that this publisher is the GRISP, or actually the WHO Immunization Strategies community, but it's the GRISP Scholar activity planning. So if you go to About This Work, Publish, and you don't see that, it means that you have not followed the instructions, that your project has not been started properly, and that therefore, and just to show you what that looks like when it's not right, let me go to the it's not connected to the course, and even if you finish, you will not be able to submit. Yes. So if you see this, when you go to About This Work, Publish, then it means that your work is not connected to the course. And there are a series of remedial steps, some of which are quite tedious, that you will have to go through to actually correctly just follow the instructions that were given to you on day 1 of week 2. So that's it. I don't see any other questions in the chat, nor are there any raised hands. I want to thank you all for your attention and your participation. Again, this is an amazing group. Look forward to following up with Alex about organizing these discussion groups around specific transformative investments. So wishing you all well. I know this is probably the most intense week during which you are working to finalize your draft plan. So I wish you a lot of energy, commitment, dedication, in line with what you've shown in the first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks of the course. I'm going to unmute everyone so that we can get to make lots of noise. And
so the second one is not the
wishing you well.
The LIO is not going to collect all the facilities.
Take care, and I look forward to seeing your projects coming in.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Rita.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rita.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye. And the next LGA.
I copied everything.